Hello everyone and welcome to round 3 of the, basically just started the Uzbek chess tournament of 2025, the UzChess Cup. We have a very nice game, basically the only one from round 3 that did not conclude in a draw. We have Nodirbek Abdusattorov, top seed of the Uzbekistan Chess Federation versus Richárd Rapport. And we've had Rapport quite a lot on the channel lately, but that's just due to his style. I mean, he's playing spectacular chess, whether winning or losing, he's always incredible. And both of them had a fairly decent start to the tournament. Nodirbek started with a win against Shavtsedin Bokidov and then a draw against Javokir Sindarov, and Rapport started with 2 draws against Parham Maksudlu and against Yanni Pomnishi. So let's check it out. Rapport does have the black pieces, but you know, if you've ever seen Rapport play, that doesn't mean a thing. He can do pretty much anything with black and white. So let's check it out. Like I said, the only game that has not concluded in a draw, Rapport, or rather Nodirbek with white opens with pawn to e4. And we have a fairly common line of the Sozin and the Sicilian with, with a certain twist. We had so many of them with the standard f5. But here, Nodirbek prepared something quite different that basically evens out the game right away, sort of gives the black equality, but if you don't know, exactly what you're doing, it can go either way. So pawn to e4, we have pawn to c5, the Sicilian defense. We have knight to f3, pawn to d6 and d4. So the standard open Sicilian, c captures. We have knight captures on d4, and knight. Sorry, that's not a knight. Knight to f6. We have knight to c3, knight to c6, and bishop to c4. So the Sozin attack. Again, we've seen it played so many times, also known as the Fischer weapon, one of Bobby Fischer's most favorite lines against the Sicilian. Pawn to e6, the transposing into the Taimanov variation, bishop to e3, and pawn to a6, preparing to go after the bishop, and now bishop to b3, sort of the unprovoked bishop to b3. I've explained the move at least 100 times on the channel already, but if anyone still wants to know, I don't mind explaining it like in the next video. We're probably going to encounter this line maybe even this week. So okay, knight to a5 going after the bishop, and pawn to f4. Again, all very standard, nothing new being played here. We have queen to c7, still the main line of the Sozin, and now f5 is the most common move here. Queen to f3 is played, castles is played here, even bishop to a4 check sometimes, but here we have the immediate pawn to g4, which is not new, but what happens next is new. So Rapport strikes with pawn to d5, as one always should when playing against the Sicilian. We always say if you manage to execute d5 in the Sicilian, you're already at least equal, if you're not worse. And the only move that has been played here is pawn to e5. So, so pawn to e5, and okay, the game usually continues. Yeah. Okay. Pawn to e5. My daughter is asking if she could analyze with me. She's only 4, and she's not well versed in the subtleties of the Sozin, but maybe next year. So pawn to e5 has been played here, but here we have e captures on d5. And it is now, as of move 11, that we have a completely new game. We have bishop to b4, d captures on e6, and knight captures on b3. We have c captures and bishop captures on c3. Pretty self-explanatory, as you capture on c3, the black king will also be in check. B captures, we have queen captures, and now king to f2. And bishop captures on e6. So of course you're going to eliminate the bishop. Knight captures on e6. We have f captures on e6, and rook to c1. And it's a complete mess of a position. And you might be thinking, okay, white is completely lost here, black is completely lost here. But no, actually the position is perfectly fine. But you have to really be careful what you're doing. And you could go queen b4, queen to a5. In the game, queen to b2 was played by Richárd, also perfectly fine. The king is in check. We have king to f3, and now rook to d8, attacking the white queen. Queen to c2, offering a queen trade, and now captures. And you might be thinking, okay, the queens are now off the board. We are, safely going into some sort of a drawish territory. Very, very unlikely. From this point on, I will make like maybe 3 or even 4 pause the video moments where you will have to find unique moves just in order to hold a draw. So rook c2, we have knight to d5 going after the bishop, and now rook to e1, saying, okay, you can capture my bishop, I don't mind. The e6 pawn will be very weak here. Castles kingside, and now pawn to h4. And here, okay, again, you could play a lot of moves, but rook to c8 was played. Pretty much any move is perfectly fine here. She's adamant about joining in on the video. But okay, h4, and we have rook to c8. The Rapport spent some 20 moves here, trying to you know, figure out what to do. And we have rook captures on c8. Rook captures on c8, and again, the position is perfectly fine, but Rapport burned a lot of time. He's already down to 19 minutes and 40 seconds, and Abdusattorov has almost 50 minutes on the clock. We have bishop to d4 and king to f7, getting the king into the game and keeping that e6 pawn safe. We have rook to e5 and now knight to e7. We have rook to c5, offering a trade of rooks. Rook captures on c5, bishop captures, and knight to c6. Again, all perfectly fine, nothing wrong with anything here, but again, the Rapport down to 16 minutes on the clock. But he's playing, you know, like an engine. We have king to e4, pawn to g6, stopping that f5 or h5 pawn push, and now bishop to b6. We have pawn to h5, trying to create some sort of a weakness on the king side, but just g captures on h5. You know, it's the engines taught us a long time ago that even though it's a very, maybe perhaps inhuman to do something like this, ruin your pawn structure, it's often the way to go. G captures and pawn to f5, getting rid of black's weakness, but also freeing up the path for the white king to go after that h5 pawn. So we have knight to e7, putting pressure on f5. F captures on e6 with check, king captures, and now bishop back to f2. And now, again, you might be thinking, okay, 3 pawns each, bishop versus knight, 2 pawns on the queen side, 1 pawn on the king side. There's no way that this could go wrong for either player. And this is where, you know, this is why we love chess. So knight to d5, we have bishop to e1. Again, nothing, you know, weird happening here. We have pawn to b6, bishop to d2, nicely controlling the knight on d5. Pawn to b5, and now bishop to a5. Again, bishop just moving back and forth, nicely controlling the knight, or rather, all of the squares the knight can go to on the queen side. Knight to e7, and now king to f4, trying to go to g5 to win the h5 pawn. Knight to c6, challenging the bishop, and now we have bishop to c3. And here, although the position is still very much playable, there's only one move that holds the game for black. And I imagine you guys know what it is, but just for fun, you know, feel free to pause the video and hold this for black, if you will. The only move that holds this is pawn to b4, as you probably have guessed, but Rapport played pawn to a5, and I'm just going to briefly show why b4 is the only way to go, because after bishop to b2, you're going to go knight e7, and now, yes, king g5 does win the h5 pawn, but after knight to d5 and king captures on h5, king f5, and that white king cannot go anywhere. Or rather, you can go to h6, but then just king to king g4, and you're going to lose that pawn, and of course the bishop cannot go to f6 as the knight is nicely placed on d5. So this is the only way to do it. But after bishop to c3, Richárd played pawn to a5, and now king to g5, and it's a completely different story. Because now pawn to a4, you no longer have the option of knight e7 as the a5 pawn would hang. So pawn to a4, pawn to b4, again the only winning move, believe it or not. Knight to e7, and now king captures on h5. Knight to d5 attacks the bishop, bishop d2, again, just nicely controlling the knight on d5. King to f5, locking in the white king, but now pawn to a3. We have knight to b6, preparing knight c4 to go after the bishop and the pawn. King to h6, preparing to move the king to advance the h-pawn to victory. And now knight to c4, attacking the bishop. And while pretty much everyone will play knight to c1 as it guards the pawn, nope, Nodirbek plays bishop to c3, which is also, you know, winning. Is just way cooler. So knight captures on a3, we have pawn to h5, and now knight to b1 going after the bishop, bishop to a1, and now knight to d2. We have king to g7, making the way for the h-pawn to start marching forward, knight to e4, and pawn to h6. We have knight to g5, stopping pawn to h7, as even though you can advance it to h7, of course black will just give up a pawn and then it's a draw. no need to analyze that. But there is one way, or rather, there's only one way for white to win this. Have at it. Feel free to pause the video and win the game for Nodirbek while I give you a couple of seconds. Bishop to b2. Beautifully played. Stopping pawn to a3, but this is only the first part of the puzzle. I could have asked you to look at it all the way, but I don't, maybe it would be too difficult. But let's see what happens. Knight e6 check, king to g8, and now knight back to g5, again stopping pawn to h7, bishop to c1, preparing to capture the knight, and once the knight is eliminated, you can advance the pawn to h7. However, you do allow pawn to a3, because now after pawn to a3, if you capture on a3, then okay, black also gets to make his way into the game. So bishop captures on g5, and now pawn to a2, and this is just, this is just beautiful. This is why we love chess, and this is, I have no idea where Nodirbek saw this. Like, could have been 10 moves ago, 15 moves ago, 20 moves ago. But again, for the last time, feel free to pause the video and win the game for Nodirbek while I give you a couple of seconds. Of course, bishop to f6. That's it. You stop the promotion. A1 will be, of course, met with bishop captures, and it was in this position on move 54 that Richárd Rapport resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. So after a draw with Parham and with Nepomniachtchi, he loses his first game to Nodirbek Abdusattorov, who also becomes the sole leader after round 3. And you resign as after you capture the bishop. Then look at this: h7, a1 queen, h8 queen, or you could also capture the bishop. It also works. And after you move the king, then just queen captures on a1. So I mean, this is an ending to a movie. This actually was an ending to a movie. If you've ever seen Searching for Bobby Fischer, that's literally how the movie ends. But yeah, very nicely done by Nodirbek, and he's representing UzChess tournament well. And I think, regardless of who's playing, at least on his home territory, he's the favorite to win it. We'll see how it goes. After the third round, he's the leader. Very nicely done by Nodirbek. And okay, we could even show the standings here. I have them here, so let's just check it out. After 3 rounds have been played, so Nodirbek Abdusattorov 2.5 points, Arjun Javokri Sindarov Pragnananda 2 points, Nodirbek Yakubov Parham Maksudlu 1.5 with 1 point. We have Yanni Pomniachtchi, Richárd Rapport, Aravind Chitambaram, and with half a point still Shamsin Invokidov. But yeah, I mean, it's I don't know if this would be categorized as a super tournament, but they are, I mean, incredible players, and in a tournament with incredible players, an incredible player will always be in last place. That's just how it works. Yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I would like to thank everyone who donated to the channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing to check up on your wonderful suggestions and whatever else happens in the chess world. Thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.